This is the Astrology Show podcast with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. This is your astrology and tarot for the week starting July 22. Aries, you cannot buy independence in a catalogue and you can't purchase freedom online. Uranus in Taurus is about the numbers that liberate you. Of course, other people could move their agenda forward at any time, which immediately means that you have to change course too. You've been living with this cycle since 2018, so you are used to it. But the funny thing about Uranus is you never get used to it because there's always a surprise and sometimes a real stop in the proceedings. And what that does is create part 3 of an ongoing revolution for you, where you have to make radical changes, or they're made for you, with the money, the house, the apartment, the business, the shares, and so on. At the heart of this is your personal value system. However you play it, your life budget this week is going to alter course and you will have to meet change with change. But as I said, you can't put a price on freedom. And what you do get here is a huge amount of new space and independence as a result of what happens. Taurus. This week's stellium, alongside Uranus in Taurus, your own sign, in your first house of image, reputation and profile will be the challenge to change. So this may be anything from the title on your business card to the way that you physically appear to your reputation as a whole. You have been living with this cycle for a few years, so you're well used to the dramatic changes that can happen, whether you've been sent up, down, or sideways by them. This week reminds you that above all else, this transit is about being free and being independent. And in fact, you are moving towards yet another Independence Day when it comes to how you look, how you are seen, and how you appear. The only thing to remember really is that there is no certainty with Uranus. There is no predictability by its very nature. It is like an electrical storm. In fact, it rules lightning in astrology, and lightning bolts are pretty common. Learning to dance in the storm where your exterior is concerned is part of what this week is all about. Gemini. The next 7 days is about your inner life, so keeping a diary or blog, so your version of God, talking to a counsellor or a psychologist, the tarot, dream interpretation, mediumship, and everything that goes on within. With a stellium in Taurus, alongside Uranus, the planet of space and independence, it's time to find freedom through something or break free from something that has played such a large part in your interior life over the last few months and years. This has been going on since 2018, so you are familiar with it, whether you have been seeing a psychiatrist or whether you have been pursuing oracle decks. Whatever you've been up to, what you experience this week throws down the gauntlet to you. You can either follow this and be liberated or say that you have had enough and break free of the restrictions involved. But nobody else will know. This is private. Cancer. Socially, with groups or with particular friends, the old way of operating is now increasingly null and void. It will comfort you to know that this is to be expected. This is Uranus transiting your solar 11th house together with several asteroids. If you happen to have anything in Aquarius in your birth chart, you can double that message as you are going through the biggest transformation in 248 years with friends and groups. This week is really a blinder because you cannot predict what is coming next or even who is coming next. But ultimately, what happens will allow you to find more space, more autonomy, and a greater feeling that you can, in fact, do what you want, when you want to do it, as you wish to do it. For some of you, this will involve breaking away from a friendship or group. In other cases, it may well be joining one. Leo. Well, this Uranus into Taurus transit, together with the asteroids, is about your aims, goals, and ambitions, and they are now looking very different. This may be full-time study, a full-time job, full-time parenting, or life as a carer for a parent. Whatever we might say is your calling. Uranus in this zone of your chart is not new to you, as you have been living with it since 2018. They do say that Uranus is the last thing you ever expected, And so you wake up now to find yourself doing pretty much the last thing you ever thought you'd do, which is quite normal. But nothing really matters in astrology unless it takes you somewhere. And where this is taking you is towards new independence that would have seemed impossible in 2017 or earlier. Pursuing this does not give you guarantees, it does not give you security, but it does give you breathing space. Virgo, the revolution continues with other countries, regions, or with foreign people or long distance people. Also, different accents, languages, passports, or cultures. Now, asteroids in Taurus join Uranus to challenge and change you again in your sector of foreigners. So you are almost used to this by now. Some of you have emigrated, some of you have married people from a completely different culture. In other cases, you've just been taking a French class, which has opened your eyes and changed your life. It's different for everybody, quite obviously. But for you this week, as you come to terms with a completely different way of experiencing the world, another culture or nationality, whether it's in your own town or whether it's across the world, the guiding light here has to be freedom for yourself and others. A new world is being born, and there is no guidebook or handbook. You're making it up as you go along. This transit is about invention. Libra. This house, banking, apartment, share market, charity, business, retail, or shopping question will not be remotely predictable. It may feel as if you are dealing with something unprecedented, unconventional, unlikely, and wholly unexpected. All the U words go with Uranus transits. This transit is about who and what is unique. There is no category here and no box to tick. This can be annoying for your accountant or you if you are an accountant, and yet at the same time, all you're doing is experiencing the knock-on effect of a much larger global transit at the moment concerning the world economy. It is up to you to invent a new way to budget this week, a new way to handle what can't come in a handbook. Scorpio. The stellium in Taurus, your opposite sign, changes the test tube contents in the laboratory of your love life, or with a partner, or with any conflict situation. This is a chemistry experiment with the other side or your other half, with your former, current, or potential partner, perhaps with an enemy, opponent, or rival, maybe both at the same time. There is no formula with Uranus. The ingredients are not entirely known. There is no recipe. And no matter how many times since 2018 you have tried a brand new approach with this person or somebody who is also on the other side or your other half, you still really are no further along in terms of being able to predict what's going to happen next. Now, it might seem ironic that an astrologer and a psychic can tell you this is unpredictable, but actually those are the rules of the game. It is important that for you and her, or you and him, there is respect for individual freedom. Your own freedom, of course, is a huge priority for you, but you are now at a time of year when you have to look at how much independence they also have. Sagittarius. There is a Uranus-led stellium in Taurus in your 6th house, and your 6th house is lifestyle, daily routine, your health and fitness, your mental health, your workload, your food, drugs, drink, doctor, healer, housework, even walking the dog. Anything to do with the daily round over 24 hours. Now, Uranus has been with you since 2018. So since that happened to you, you have in many ways reshaped your own destiny. Some of you have retired, some of you have resigned or changed jobs, and maybe you've been job sharing or working from home. There may have been a health issue which has set you free, ironically enough, from having to turn up to the 9 to 5 at all. It's different for everybody, but if you have anything in Virgo in your birth chart, it will have been twice as important. Now, this week, what you would experience with your workload at home or actually at work or at university is out of the box. Nobody could have seen it coming, and yet at the same time, it's pretty liberating. And with these transits, it's as best that you set yourself free. Capricorn. Uranus and Cupido are now in your zone of relationships, babies, infants, school children, teenagers, and Generation Z. To this list, we add a younger demographic in general. So you may be a teacher, for example, or it may be your godchildren or your son. However this shows up in your personal chart, with Uranus and Cupido together, you now know the point of everything that you've experienced since 2018, which was to teach you that sometimes you have to listen to your instinct and do what excites you, what exhilarates you, and what is completely different. In fact, it is very common to wake up and realize that the last thing you ever thought would come to pass is actually happening. And that's since 2018. This week is part of the overall picture as the jigsaw pieces of your life with this person are once again rearranged so that you can create a new picture. Aquarius. Since your ruler Uranus changed signs in 2018, you have already seen tremendous alterations affecting your apartment, your house, your garden, your roommate or flatmate, your household, your family, your town or country, hometown or homeland, your people and your place, in other words. And although this is your planetary ruler, and you are in many ways better qualified than the other signs to deal with the transit, it's still true that this week will bring change that you'd not expected, and therefore you have to keep on adapting and moving with the times. The only real rule with Uranus is that you should be free as a result of it. You should feel free, and others should also have freedom too. Without that, this doesn't really work. But there are ways and ways of getting or granting freedom, and this week is a good time to find out what is going to work best for you and for others. Pisces. The Taurus stellium is about your use of the World Wide Web, multimedia, education, or the book world. It's about communication, information, and transportation. So it may affect you if you handle calls and you work for a taxi company. It may affect you if you are dealing with the media. It's about connectivity. Your way with words, ideas, or images, how you plug in and connect, may just be confined to your personal life or to the web as a whole, but quite revolutionary change is ongoing. You can already see this for yourself. Since 2018, you have embarked on pathways online which you never thought you'd find yourself on. There is more of that this week, and Uranus is also a symbol in astrology for innovation and invention. In fact, it was found with a very newfangled version of the telescope. So a different edge of communication technology, your telephone or your computer, is also here this week. Now your birth chart. If you have factors in Taurus in the second house of your birth chart, there is often a sense of relief from tension on this cycle with an inheritance, a tax return, property, insurance, the share market, and so on, when this planet turns up surrounded by asteroids. It can feel as if there is an electrical storm building that then breaks. The only caveat is you cannot predict the way that the lightning is going to run. So in many ways, you have to adapt and adjust as it happens. Your tarot this week can be decoded at my website. Aries, the Two of Pentacles. Taurus, the Page of Wands. Gemini, the Hermit. Cancer, the Three of Cups. Leo, the Ace of Swords. Virgo, the World. Libra, the Three of Pentacles. Scorpio, the Devil. Sagittarius, Temperance. Capricorn, the Sun. Aquarius, the Four of Wands. Pisces, the Two of Wands. Fated connections this week are Aries and Libra through money or property. Happy birthday if it's your birthday. There is no such thing as a cusp, though, so do use astro.com, the website which is free to use, with your time, place, and date of birth to find out if you really are a Cancer or a Leo. Babies born this week all have Pluto in Aquarius, so people power in a group is in their destiny. They start out with this as children, on a football team, for example, in the Girl Guides, or in a gang like Peanuts. Later on, as adults, they find out that was training. Famous birthdays this week include Martin Gore on July 23, who is 63. David Essex is 77 on the same day, and Andy Mackay is 78. Mick Khan would have been 66 on July 24. Thurston Moore is 66 on July 25. Ron Pino would have been 69 on July 26. I met him once. He is and was a very nice man. Roger Taylor is 75 on the same day, and I've been lucky enough to meet him too. Mick Jagger is 81 on the same day. On July 28, Steve Peregrine Took would have been 75, and Richard Wright would have been 81 on the same day. I've had a lot of comments about my prediction of the Microsoft chaos on July 19. A CrowdStrike software caused global havoc. With the massive disruption of school holidays, the US summer vacation for families, university chaos and college upheaval, Mercury backwards in Leo did deliver. Now, back in 2022, you read this on my website. Mercury retrograde in Leo 2024. This is about children, so we can bracket school with work in the summer of 2024 in the Northern Hemisphere. Of course, this is winter and cold season in Australia, New Zealand, and the Southern Hemisphere. Leo has always ruled sons and daughters, young relatives, heirs to the throne, and pretenders to the throne. It also rules parents and teachers. The dates to be careful with are July 17th to 25th, then August 16th to September 9th. If you have anything in Leo in your 5th house at 21 to 29 degrees, expect rescheduling or cancellation. Mercury retrograde. Mercury rules bookings, flights, all travel and transport, and crisis. If they are still even running by 2024, cruises. Mercury rules the post office, the internet, traffic jams and queues, and computer issues. Anything that hangs or is suspended is Mercury retrograde. Mercury is the messenger, and our modern astrology, which is Roman in origin, still interprets this planet as the messenger of the gods, although today he is likely to represent couriers and TV scheduling. There is no one way on Mercury retrograde. The arrow points backwards and also backwards again. It is a traffic sign telling you to have a backup plan. Now, this isn't over, by the way, not by a long shot. Mercury retrograde is still in Leo now as you're listening to this, and then he goes into Virgo. Mercury retrograde in Leo is weddings, and this makes sense. People marry in the summer in the Northern Hemisphere, July and August into early September, and of course the rolling disruption of what's just happened is affecting all those reunions for wedding receptions. Mercury retrograde in Leo is also, of course, children and young adults, so the school term or the university term worldwide is being affected. Leo also rules courtship, the dating game, and everything that we might call capital R romance. So if something is rolling but unrolling between now and September, you know why. The Mercury retrograde in Virgo cycle is a greater concern. Don't get caught by this one because Mercury reverses in Virgo, which rules COVID. It rules public health. It rules any epidemic or pandemic. So not just the C word, but anything else that turns up. You've already seen President Biden get COVID for the 3rd time. COVID hospital admission in America is up about 25% as you're listening to this. And we know that when the US sneezes, the world gets a cold, or COVID anyway. So don't take risks over this period of your life until early September. Virgo also rules the workforce, working people, and the working class. This is going to be global mass rescheduling. Let's talk a bit more about Mercury and why so many people get Mercury retrograde wrong. A lot of astrology that you read in the media is totally out of whack. Mercury has a pre-shadow and post-shadow period. So if you read that it actually begins in August, that's incorrect in modern astrology. It began, as I predicted 2 years ago, in late July, right on time for the Microsoft mess. So this time around, Mercury moves from 21 to 29 Leo from July 17 until July 25. Then he pops up again from August 16 to September 9, from 29 to 21 Leo, then onwards from 21 to 29 Leo, reversing, moving forward and backwards. The Virgo loop, which is about public health and the workforce, is from 0 to 4 degrees of Virgo, and it begins on July 26, taking you to August 15, and we are not out of this until we are past September 10, 11, 12, when he's cleared the space. Looking at world headlines, Meghan and Prince Harry's titles may be in flux. She is a Leo, he is a Virgo. The titles on their website may change, then have to change back again. You can expect quite a lot of muddle and mess and malarkey with this Mercury retrograde in Leo, just because it rules royal families. In addition to this, what we're seeing in the US is almost textbook in the White House. Biden is a Scorpio. These transits go through his career zone in Leo and then into his zone of groups in Virgo, the Democrats. Meanwhile, Harris is a Libran, so she has this Mercury retrograde mess and muddle going through Leo in her zone of groups and then into Virgo, backwards and forwards. So the pair of them, through their sun sign charts in the Democrats, are really keeping us guessing for quite a long time. It will not really be until September 12 that things feel fixed, firm, final, and finished. Mercury retrograde elicits all sorts of reactions from people. It's neither negative nor positive. It is what it is. It is just communication, information, and transportation reversing even before it's begun. However, if you put it in context of the chart and you look at the other transits around it, you tend to find a bigger story. So the Titanic launched on it, and the Titanic sank because of an iceberg. But one of the reasons it sank was the key to the cabinet holding the binoculars was not there. Telegrams that were passed on were put under a paperweight and did not reach the right people. Mercury, by its nature, is about quite small and trivial details which can add up to something far more difficult, even an outright tragedy, if they are in context with the rest of the chart. And that's why astrologers will sound the alarm, not because they want to make people feel negative about what's going on, but because there is a chance that you might have the sort of chart where it really does matter. It is not just about bad with a capital B. That's what you find teenagers on the internet saying on TikTok. It is what it is. It may be that there is a print job that doesn't come out the way that it should, or you have an issue with your technology. We've just seen what happens to Microsoft users. It may be that you never had a plan B or a C for your transport or travel. And again, that's why astrologers say don't travel on Mercury retrograde. It's not necessarily a disaster. It may just be a delay or a traffic jam. But in the wrong circumstances, if enough charts line up, then yes, you may have a serious problem. There may be a cancellation, for example. Mercury is very much about the chain reaction that happens down the line. If you remember that there was chaos after 9/11, you won't be surprised to learn that it was a Mercury retrograde transit. The chain reaction in airports around the world is absolutely typical of that. And of course, it's happening again. As you are listening to this, the reaction from corporate America is that this is in hand and that everything is under control again. But being an astrologer, I have to say either the same issue or a related one is going to repeat and reoccur. You also have to look at Mercury as a trickster. He was a trickster in mythology. People go back on their word on Mercury retrograde. People who are mercurial, so they are like Quicksilver. They may be very active online or in the media. They may have the gift of the gab, can tell you one thing and then reverse it later. So it's as best that you're aware of that. It's also important to remember that the negotiation process can contain deceit on Mercury retrograde. Hitler lied on this cycle when the British were trying to negotiate peace with him. It's also notorious for big announcements that come to nothing, that are hollow. So when a politician fronts up to a microphone and tells you that this is absolutely going to happen, take it with a pinch of salt. On the plus side, if there is a development in progress that you don't want to happen, if there is some enormous venture starting that you really wish wasn't, the people concerned are doing it on Mercury retrograde. It may well be cancelled later, no matter how confident they might sound at the time. So there are pros and cons with this cycle. If you're curious about Mercury retrograde and your birth chart, you can find out more on my website. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.